That C on an NHL jersey, it stands for captain, but it's the heaviest letter in all of sports. For some, it's the mark of a legend. For others, it's the brand of a failure. This is the most loved and most hated captains in NHL history. First, the ones who failed the test. In Edmonton and New York, Mark Messier is a hockey god. He is the Messiah, a legendary leader who captained 2 different franchises to the Stanley Cup. But in Vancouver, he is a villain, a mercenary whose disastrous tenure as captain is remembered as one of the darkest and most hated eras in the team's history. The story began in the summer of 1997. Messier, a free agent, signed a massive contract with the Canucks. The hype was immense. He was supposed to be the final piece of the puzzle, the legendary leader who would finally bring a championship to the city. Instead, he systematically dismantled the team's culture from the moment he arrived. His first act was a demand for the number 11. This number was unofficially retired in Vancouver, out of circulation in honor of Wayne Mackey, a former player who had passed away from brain cancer. Messier's insistence on wearing the number and the ownership's decision to give it to him was seen by longtime fans as a profound act of disrespect to the team's history. But his next act was even worse. The captain of the Vancouver Canucks was Trevor Linden, arguably the most beloved and respected player in the franchise's history. He was the heart and soul of the team. Upon Messier's arrival, Linden was unceremoniously stripped of the captaincy, which was then handed to the newcomer. The move created an immediate and irreparable rift in the locker room and completely alienated the fan base. They had just gained a new captain. They had watched their true leader be humiliated. With Messier wearing the C, the team completely fell apart of the league standings. They would go on to miss the playoffs in all 3 of his seasons in Vancouver. The final insult came years later. After leaving the team to return to the Rangers, Messier filed a grievance and eventually sued the financially struggling Canucks organization for unpaid contract money, a legal battle that dragged on for years. Mark Messier's time in Vancouver is a cautionary tale. He arrived as a supposed savior, but his arrogance and his disrespect for the team's existing culture turned him into a pariah, making him arguably the most hated captain in the history of a single franchise. Being the captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs is one of the most high-pressure jobs in all of sports. You are the leader of the league's most valuable franchise, playing in the biggest media market for a fan base that is desperate for a championship. It's a job that can make you a legend. Or, in the case of Dion, it can make you the public face of a decade of failure. Phaneuf was named captain of the Leafs in 2010 and was soon signed to a massive 7-year, $49 million contract. That contract and the C on his jersey put an enormous target on his back. He was a good player, a physical top-pairing defenseman, but he was not the savior the city was looking for, and his leadership style was often criticized. He was perceived as being aloof and awkward with the media, not the fiery vocal leader that Toronto fans craved.
Fell short of our goal, and that was to win a Stanley Cup, so making the playoffs is a good first step for us.
His tenure was defined by the team's inability to win. The most infamous moment was the historic Game 7 collapse against the Boston Bruins in the 2013 playoffs. The Leafs, on the brink of winning their first playoff series in years, held a 4-1 lead in the third period, only to completely fall apart and lose in overtime. As the captain, Phaneuf became the symbol of that humiliating defeat. But the moment that truly killed his reputation as a leader came on November 20th, 2014. It is known simply as Salute-gate. After a big home victory, the Maple Leafs players as a team refused to perform their traditional salute to the home fans at center ice. The move was seen as a petulant protest against the fans who had been booing them during a recent losing streak. It was a declaration of war on their own supporters.
Well, to tell you the truth, I was totally unaware of what transpired until this morning.
As the captain, Phaneuf bore the brunt of the public outrage. It was seen as a massive failure of leadership, an act of disrespect that created a deep rift between the team and his fans. While the team's many failures were not solely his fault, his massive contract and his role as captain made him the perfect scapegoat. He was eventually traded in 2016, ending a tenure that is remembered for frustration, failure, and a disconnect between the team and the city it played for. But a captain can be hated for more than just failing to meet expectations. Sometimes, a captain is hated for being too good at their job, in the worst possible way. This is a unique case. In the city of Boston, Zdeno Chara is a revered icon, a franchise-altering leader who brought the team back to glory. But for the 29 other fan bases in the league, he was a villain. He was the feared and hated leader of the modern Big Bad Bruins, a team that bullied its way to the top, with him leading the charge. Chara's leadership was built on a foundation of pure physical intimidation. At 6'9", he was the most physically imposing player in the history of the sport, and he used every inch of that frame to his advantage. As captain, he set the tone for a Bruins team that was known for being tough, aggressive, and constantly playing on the edge of the rules, featuring notorious agitators like Brad Marchand and Milan Lucic. For years, rivals despised playing against Chara's Bruins, but the moment that cemented his status as a true villain came on March 8, 2011. During a heated game against their bitter rivals, the Montreal Canadiens, Chara rode forward Max Pacioretty hard into the glass stanchion that separates the team benches. The hit was violent and in a dangerous area of the ice. Pacioretty was knocked unconscious, suffering a fractured vertebrae and a severe concussion. The play was so reckless that it sparked a national incident. The Montreal police opened a criminal investigation into the hit, and the league faced immense pressure to suspend Chara. Ultimately, the NHL ruled that the hit did not warrant a suspension, a decision that caused a firestorm of outrage across the league, particularly in Montreal. For rivals, this was the ultimate example of Chara's leadership style. A brutal, intimidating force that often crossed the line into recklessness, seemingly with the league's approval. While he was undeniably an effective captain, leading his team to a Stanley Cup just a few months after that incident, his legacy outside of Boston is that of an enforcer captain. He was the feared leader of a team that no one wanted to play against, a captain who was hated for being the biggest and baddest player on the ice. But a captain can also be hated not for his physical dominance, but for being a black hole of talent and money. You don't have to be a villain to be a hated captain. Sometimes all it takes is a terrible contract and complete failure to deliver. Alexei Yashin is hated for being a bust. His disastrous tenure as a captain of the New York Islanders is a cautionary tale of a player who was given a massive contract and the leadership of a team, but never delivered, becoming a symbol of one of the worst personnel decisions in modern sports history. The story begins in the summer of 2001. The Islanders' general manager at the time, Mike Milbury, made a now infamous blockbuster trade to acquire Yashin from the Ottawa Senators. To get him, Milbury traded away a young, promising defenseman named Zdeno Chara and the number 2 overall pick in the draft, which the Senators used to select future superstar Jason Spezza. The price was enormous, but Milbury wasn't done. He immediately signed Yashin to a colossal 10-year, $87.5 million contract, one of the richest in the league, and promptly named him team captain. The message was clear. This was the man who would lead the Islanders back to glory. He never came close. Yashin's performance on the ice was inconsistent, and his effort level was constantly questioned by fans and the media. He was seen as a player who put up decent numbers in the regular season, but disappeared completely in the playoffs, the time when a captain is supposed to lead the way. He was the highest paid player on the team, wearing the captain label on his jersey, but he never displayed the drive or the leadership qualities that were expected of him. His massive contract became an albatross around the franchise's neck, making it impossible to build a competitive team around him. Finally, in 2007, the Islanders had seen enough. They bought out the final 4 years of his contract, a move to finally cut ties with their failed leader. But here's the detail that makes this story so infamous. The terms of the NHL buyout meant that the team had to pay him 2/3 of his remaining salary over twice the remaining length of the deal. Because of this, the New York Islanders were still sending a check for over $2 million to Alexei Yashin every single year until 2015, 8 years after he last played a game for them. His captaincy is remembered as a complete disaster. A player hated not for his malice, but for being the face of a terrible trade and a terrible contract that handicapped the franchise for a decade. We've seen the villains, the mercenaries, the scapegoats, and the busts. But for every captain who failed the test, there's another who defined what it means to be a true leader. These are the legends defined by character, not just championships. If you were going to build a perfect captain in a lab, you would end up with Steve Yzerman. For 20 years, he wore the C for the Detroit Red Wings, and in that time, he transformed himself and his franchise, becoming the ultimate symbol of selfless leadership in all of professional sports. For the first half of his career, Yzerman was a pure offensive dynamo. He was a scoring machine, a player who regularly put up over 100 points a season. He peaked in the 1988-89 season with an incredible 65 goals and 155 points, numbers that put him in the same stratosphere as Wayne Gretzky and Mario Lemieux. He was on a clear path to becoming one of the greatest individual scorers in history. But there was just one problem. His teams never won anything. That all changed with the arrival of legendary coach Scotty Bowman in the mid-90s. Bowman sat his superstar captain down and gave him a challenge. He told Yzerman that if he wanted to win a Stanley Cup, he had to completely change his game. He had to stop focusing on scoring and transform himself into a premier two-way defensive forward. This was a career-defining moment. Yzerman, the face of the franchise and one of the league's biggest stars, was being asked to sacrifice his personal stats, his chances at scoring titles, and the individual glory he had known his entire career. Without hesitating, he bought in completely. That selfless act of leadership sent a powerful message that echoed through the entire organization. If their captain was willing to sacrifice everything for the team, then everyone else had to do the same. This became the foundation of the Red Wing way, a culture of accountability and team-first mentality that would define the team for 2 decades. The results were immediate. Yzerman's new defensive-minded approach led the Red Wings to 3 Stanley Cup championships under his leadership. His most legendary moment of leadership, however, came during the 2002 playoffs. He played the entire postseason on a severely injured right knee, an injury so bad that doctors later said it was like playing on bone. He was in so much pain that he could barely walk between games, but he refused to sit out. Not only did he play, but he was a key contributor, famously scoring a double overtime game winner against St. Louis. It was a display of toughness and dedication that is still talked about in awe today. Steve Yzerman is revered as perhaps the greatest captain of his generation, a leader who proved that true greatness isn't measured in points, but in sacrifice. Some leaders are respected for their intensity. Jean Béliveau was loved for his grace. For an entire generation of hockey fans, Le Gros Bill was the personification of class and dignity, a captain who was not just a champion on the ice, but was the ultimate ambassador for the sport off of it. His on-ice accomplishments are the stuff of legend. His name is engraved on the Stanley Cup a staggering 17 times, 10 as a player and 7 as a team executive. It is a record that will likely never be broken. He was the captain of the mighty Montreal Canadiens for 10 seasons, leading one of the greatest dynasties in the history of sports and winning 5 championships with a C on his jersey. But Béliveau's true legacy lies in an impeccable character he displayed for his entire life. He was universally respected by teammates, opponents, and fans for his profound humility and kindness. There are thousands of stories from fans about how he would always have time for an autograph, a photo, or a simple conversation, treating everyone he met with genuine warmth and respect. He dedicated countless hours to charity work, establishing a foundation in his name that has donated millions of dollars to children's causes. After retiring, he remained a fixture in the Montreal community, a living symbol of the team's glorious history. His stature in Canada transcended the sport of hockey. He was so deeply respected for his integrity and public service that he was twice offered the position of Governor General of Canada, the official representative of the Queen in the country. It's an honor that is almost unheard of for a professional athlete. Both times, Béliveau politely declined the offer for personal family reasons, a move that only added to his reputation for humility. He set the gold standard for what it means to be the captain of the Montreal Canadiens, the most storied franchise in the league. His leadership wasn't about yelling or intimidation. It was about leading by example, with a quiet confidence and an unwavering sense of honor. Jean Béliveau is remembered as a figure of almost royal stature in the hockey world. A man who is loved not just for the incredible number of championships he won, but for being, by all accounts, one of the finest human beings the sport has ever known. But a captain's love isn't only earned through sacrifice or quiet dignity. Sometimes it's forged in the fire of competition, through a warrior spirit and a relentless will to win that defines a generation. In the world of hockey, there's a special level of respect reserved for the warrior, the player who combines elite skill with old-school toughness, who can score 50 goals one season and be the most feared fighter on the ice the next. For over a decade, Jarome Iginla was the definition of a warrior and the beloved heart and soul captain of the Calgary Flames. Iginla was one of the last true power forwards in the game. He was a 2-time 50-goal scorer, a winner of the Art Ross Trophy as the league's leading scorer, and the undisputed offensive engine of his team for more than a decade. But unlike most other superstars of his era, he was also a heavyweight fighter. He never hesitated to drop the gloves to defend a teammate or to change the momentum of a game. And his fights are legendary. This rare and incredible combination of elite goal scoring and punishing physicality earned him a level of universal respect from teammates and opponents alike. For 9 seasons, he wore the C for the Flames, and during that time, he was the franchise. He was the face of the team, the leader in the locker room, and a pillar of the Calgary community. His most iconic moment as captain came during the 2004 playoffs. He led an underdog Flames team on an improbable, magical run all the way to Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final. In the opening round of that run, he famously fought the captain of the Vancouver Canucks, setting a physical tone that inspired his entire team. While the Flames would ultimately lose that final in a heartbreaking Game 7, Iginla's dominant and passionate performance cemented his legacy as a legendary leader in the hearts of Flames fans. But the moment that truly defined his character came at the end of his time in Calgary. In 2013, the Flames were entering a full rebuild, and Iginla was nearing the end of his career without a Stanley Cup. In a selfless act of loyalty to the franchise he loved, he waived his no-trade clause, allowing the team to trade him to a contender in exchange for future assets. His departure was emotional, with the entire city supporting his decision, wanting to see their beloved captain finally get the chance to lift a trophy he so richly deserved. Jarome Iginla is revered as one of the greatest leaders of his generation, a player who is loved for his unique combination of skill, toughness, and unwavering loyalty. Every so often, a player comes along who is burdened with the impossible expectations. Sidney Crosby was one of those players, dubbed the next one before he ever played an NHL game. He entered the league with the pressure to be the next Gretzky or Lemieux. He's not only met those expectations, he has exceeded them, evolving from a teenage phenom into one of the most accomplished and respected captains in the history of the sport. His journey as a leader began at an incredibly young age. In 2007, the Pittsburgh Penguins named him captain at just 19 years old, making him the youngest captain in NHL history at the time. In his early years, he faced criticism for his perceived complaining to officials, and some questioned whether he was ready for the immense responsibility. He answered those questions by leading the Penguins to a Stanley Cup championship in 2009, just 2 years after being named captain. But the true test of his leadership came in the years that followed. His career was put in jeopardy by a series of severe, life-altering concussions that forced him to miss significant time. It was during this period of adversity that he truly grew into his role as a leader. He showed incredible resilience and dedication, working relentlessly to overcome his injuries and return to his place as the best player in the world. His battle became an inspiration, a powerful example of perseverance to his teammates and the entire hockey community. His leadership is built on a foundation of an almost mythical work ethic. He is universally regarded as one of the hardest working and most meticulous athletes in all of professional sports. Teammates and coaches consistently tell stories of relentless preparation, his obsessive attention to detail, and his grueling off-season training regimens. He leads by setting a standard of dedication that is almost impossible for others to match, a standard that has become the foundation of the Penguins culture. The results of his leadership speak for themselves. He has captained the Penguins to 3 Stanley Cup championships. He has won 2 Olympic gold medals for Team Canada, scoring the legendary Golden Goal in 2010. He has won every major award the league has to offer, multiple times. He has evolved from a young prodigy into a mature, respected leader who has defined an entire era of hockey. Sidney Crosby is the modern model of a superstar captain, a relentless winner who has earned his place among the all-time greats. So there you have it, the villains who broke our trust, and the heroes who earned our undying respect. From the classiest ambassadors to the most selfless warriors. They are the leaders who prove that the C on the jersey is more than just a letter, it's a legacy. So which captain's story stands out the most to you? Let us know in the comments.